An impending crisis for the construction industry. Let's have a look. Good evening everyone, Florian here and welcome to another episode of HeiseSays. I thought we should have a look at this article which is discussing a challenge in the construction industry. Now we are facing a housing crisis. Housing affordability is, well, it's essentially non-existent, particularly for those of you that are trying to get into the market, first home buyers. The government is obviously trying to do whatever they can to win people over. That's just why we have a 5% deposits to get into housing. Sure, it's opening the doors for more people, but it's not creating affordable housing. Now, one of the reasons why we're not going to see affordable housing anytime soon is simply because, well, supply isn't meeting demand. And we've had promises of building, 1 million new homes, and we're not hitting that target anywhere close. Now, one consideration is the labor pool, the skilled people we need to be able to build these homes. We've got a playlist here on the industry where we're discussing the construction apocalypse. Builders going bust left, right, and center. That's the outcome of the home builders scheme. Remember, during the pandemic, when they were giving everyone 150 grand to build their house? Oh, no, sorry, 15 grand if you spend 150 grand. So, it paid for a lot of pools and extensions, but all it did really was bring work forward. But the problem was, a lot of those contracts that the builders signed up for or used didn't take account of inflation and other crazy things that happened during that period. So we've seen builders go bust left, right, and center. And the concern is we're losing a lot of skills and capability in our construction sector. But we've got another issue with our construction sector. We've got the resi sector, but you've also got all the other parts of the sector that are demanding those same skills, same trades, same materials. And, well, let's look at this article here highlighting that issue. So a crisis looms for a $242 billion pipeline. Australia's construction industry faces a critical moment as government spending on energy and housing injects billions into the nation's infrastructure pipelines while worsening a severe worker shortage. Now, here you go. We've got all of this push for environmentally, disposable energy production to try and mitigate the carbon footprint of the nation. And regardless of your opinion of if that's a good thing or a bad thing, it's going to take resources, it's going to take people, it's going to take skills. Even building the temporary camps, or as some councils are trying to push, permanent housing for these construction projects, is taking away skills, trades, materials for other construction projects that could lead to housing to try and address the housing crisis. So no one's going to win. We're never going to win, guys. It's not... I've got a poll right now running on the channel, the opposite of the doom tier list. This is the golden age tier list. I'd like your suggestions, ideas, and proposals to return Australia to a golden age. We were before, we can again. So, Infrastructure Australia's latest infrastructure market capacity report shows the 5-year major public infrastructure pipeline has ballooned by $29 billion in the past year, reaching a record $242 billion. The growth marks the first rebound in 2 years and the highest level of public investment since national tracking began in 2020. Despite this growth, the report warns that the industry is projected to face a shortfall of around 300,000 workers by mid-2027 as demand for infrastructure continues to accelerate. So, that's an interesting consideration. If you're there, a younger person considering career options, do you go maybe a nice cushy desk job, or you want to be a graphics artist where you're competing with AI bots that can generate a whole lot of useful images? Or do you want to go in an industry where we're predicted to have a huge shortfall? There's a reason why my wife and I, we have got 4 degrees between us. We've each got 2 degrees. And we're encouraging our children to consider a trade. We're telling them you can always go and do a university degree later. It's not the end of the world. Utilities are driving the upswing, with investment in energy transmission projects forecast to more than double to $36 billion, while building projects, including social housing, are expected to climb $6 billion to $77 billion. Now, I wonder how much of this $36 billion would not be necessary if we didn't have this push for renewables and having to construct remote or harvest this power from a remote location and then transfer it such a great distance. That's the question. You've got to realize all of that infrastructure has an embodied carbon footprint that wouldn't be necessary if we just replaced a power plant in a city or close to a city with another one. This is the thing. You've got to realize there is a whole series of embodied energy and infrastructure with this renewable stuff that you don't need otherwise. But they don't discuss that. It's not taught, and the average punter, I don't think, understands what's going on. Transport remains the largest slice of the pie at $129 billion, more than half of all spending. Infrastructure Australia Chief Executive Adam Kopp said the record pipeline reflects government's renewed focus on long-term nation building. How much of that is dams? I didn't see any discussion of dams here. The pipeline shows government are doubling down on energy transmission and housing projects in a bid to meet their targets while continuing to deliver the major transport projects we need to enable Australia's productivity and livability for decades to come. But behind the boom lies a growing problem. The industry is already short 141,000 workers needed to deliver current projects, and the shortfall is expected to surge to 300 by mid-2027. As housing, we've already read that. Or are they repeating it perhaps? I mean, there's evidence for job security right there. Okay? So I know we look at a lot of negative news because that's all that gets anyone's attention. It's what everyone's interested in. But you have to pull it apart and look at it and be quite critical of it. Going, okay, here we go. We've got all this infrastructure. There's predicted shortages. These are opportunities. These are opportunities. This added demand will not come without challenges from the market. Productivity growth remains sluggish, while worker shortages present a significant risk to delivery of projects. What we'll see is, those of you that are calling for reduced immigration into the country, it's not going to happen when we've got huge predicted shortages to meet infrastructure projects, some which are driven for ideological reasons. So regional areas are set to feel the squeeze. 10 regions across New South Wales, Tasmania and Queensland are forecast to see public investment rise by at least 200%, with some areas tipped for much higher surges. While that presents an enormous opportunity for regional economies, the worker shortfall could hit them hardest. Well, so long as the money actually gets to the regional economies. Okay, what's the point in having these projects in the middle of nowhere when they fly everyone in, when they've got all the workers in a camp that are completely isolated from the local community? When they're going for a beer, they're not even getting it from the local town. So this is where, when we're seeing councils are pushing for these projects to result in permanent housing, that's encouraging. I mean, back in the day, you had towns spring up from the mines. And these were communities. People moved there, they raised their families there. We've got family friends who moved from Germany to central Queensland and raised kids there. Our analysis shows public and private sector ambitions to deliver renewable energy projects, including transmission lines, solar, wind and pumped hydro, are estimated to total $163 billion over the next 5 years, a significant proportion of which will be driven into our regions. So I wonder, there's an interesting one to calculate, the housing cost impact of this $163 billion of investment. I know people are concerned about the environment, but Australia is not going to have any impact on a global scale. It's not going to make any difference. Now, what's more important? Posturing and looking good, or having a better quality of life, and more affordable housing, and cheaper power for your citizens? To me, it seems like a very obvious answered. It seems like common sense. But I think people just must be afraid. They must just be buying into the rhetoric. At least Bill Gates changed his mind. He said the massive investment could be a once-in-a-generation opportunity for regional areas, but unlocking it will require addressing 3 decades of stagnant productivity in the construction sector, ensuring there are enough skilled workers to deliver the projects. We need to do more with less, he said. Yeah, not going to happen. Not going to happen. I mean, I'm a little skeptical. We need to start investing in innovation. The report warns that without major improvements in productivity and innovation, the gap between infrastructure demand and in the industry's capacity to deliver will continue to widen. One of our key recommendations is for government to incentivize the markets to trial productivity-enhancing innovations, such as modern methods of construction, which can then be scaled, just like the UK, US, and Singapore has done, he said. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of talk about this, and there are certain advantages. I just went to listened to a digital conference from Autodesk, a super conference about this. And a lot of it is industrialized manufacturing, breaking things into components or products and then deploying it. Partial fabrication in factories. We're already doing a lot of it. If you could look at house trusses and frames built in the factory and delivered to site, that's been happening for decades. It's just taking this approach to another level. You can get to the point where you argue for a fully volumetric house. We do a lot of modular stuff, a lot of the education, because it's rapid deployment. If they need a building deployed quickly, that's how you do it. In the mines, it's remote. So you fabricate as much as you can off-site and then deploy it. But that's not going to solve all the problems in the world. It's not a magic solution. I remember we were working for one client, and he was fabricating these little toilet pods really efficiently, robotically fabricating it and all of this stuff, but he just couldn't handle the complexity of the entire projects. He could handle the pods, not the entire buildings. We're also recommending the development of consistent nationwide training programs to upskill workers in these innovations. We need to start investing in innovation rather than fixating on delivering at the lowest possible cost. Yeah, okay. Tell me how you go with the next government project, guys, when you put your tender in. Infrastructure Australia said the construction sector's reliance on traditional methods, coupled with slow productivity growth and supply chain vulnerabilities, had left the industry struggling to keep up with the soaring demand. The independent advisor, which has tracked national supply and demand across the infrastructure sector since 2020, said the year's record pipeline underscored both the strength and strain of Australia's infrastructure ambitions. Well, let's reflect and have a bit of a chat about this one. It's encouraging that there's an appreciation that we need to modernize, we need to innovate in our construction sector, but it's a challenge. It's a challenge. You've got a whole world. We've lost a whole lot of skills, particularly in the housing sector, with the construction apocalypse, fueled by government intervention and juicing up the market. And modern methods of construction are not going to solve all the problems, and it's not a magic panacea that can cure all the challenges in this sector. It's not going to solve the issues on union-run sites. When you look at the cost of those compared to non-union sites, it's a 30% difference. There's a lot of ideological decisions and politics in construction. It's not going anywhere. But maybe we should look at some of these projects. Should we maybe take a step back? Maybe look at some more options. Maybe spread them out a bit further. It's going to be a challenge. And, from the housing market sector, I can't see it helping. What do you reckon, guys? Definitely some opportunities if you're getting a trade. I'd be, if you're that way inclined, I'll be having a look to see what's out there and what could be lucrative. Because you could run your own business, build your own future, and have a wealth of opportunities. Help build that golden age for Australia. As always, take care. I'll see you next time. Bye for now.